10th deadliest war of all time is the Vietnam War. The conflict started when Vietnam had been split into two, with a communist government in the north under Ho Chi Minh and a democratic government in the south under Ngo Dinh Diem. Ho launched a campaign in South Vietnam, led by Viet Cong units, with the goal of uniting the country under communist rule. The United States, seeking to stop the spread of communism, trained the Army of the Republic of Vietnam and provided military advisors to help combat the guerrillas. The jungle-like landscapes and different tactics used by the Vietnamese basically caused a stalemate between us, and we withdrew after not making progress, losing thousands of troops. With our withdrawal, they took the southern Saigon easily. After it was all over, almost 60,000 U.S. troops were killed, almost 250,000 southern Vietnamese, and nearly 1,100,000 North Vietnam were dead. The technology of the U.S. and the strategy of the North Vietnamese inflicted heavy casualties on both sides, thus making the Vietnam War the 10th deadliest war of all time.
Number 9.
The 9th deadliest war of all time is the Korean War. The Korean War began in 1950. Korea had been split into North Korea and South Korea 2 years earlier. In North Korea, there was a communist government. In South Korea, there was a democratic government. Each wanted to unify Korea under its own form of government. North Korea invaded South Korea on June 25, 1950, in order to unify Korea by force. South Korea was caught off guard and North Korean troops took over the capital, Seoul, and almost took over the whole country. The United States immediately sought peace talks, but for the next 2 years harsh battles were fought. Nobody really won the war, and nothing really changed. Both Koreas were damaged from the war, and conflict still goes on today. This forgotten war took the lives of 35,000 Americans, 60,000 South Koreans, and 215,000 North Koreans.
Number 8.
The 8th deadliest war of all time is the 30 Years' War. The 30 Years' War was a religious war fought over a 30-year time period, from 1618 to 1648, involving most of the major European powers. It mainly took place in the territory of Germany. Beginning as a religious conflict between Protestants and Catholics in the Holy Roman Empire, it gradually developed into a general war involving much of Europe. Episodes of widespread famine and disease devastated the population of the German states. The war ended with the Treaty of Munster, a part of the wider Peace of Westphalia. Around 3 million people died from war, famine, and disease.
Number 7.
The 7th deadliest war of all time is the Napoleonic Wars. The Napoleonic Wars involved Napoleon Bonaparte's conquests from 1803 to 1815. It was his French Empire fighting against the coalition forces all over Europe. His empire was able to conquer many parts of Europe, but eventually failed when he reached Russia. The wars ended after Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo and the Second Treaty of Paris. Casualties accumulated to around 4 to 6 million. The result of these wars brought great changes to Europe and the Americas.
Number 6.
The 6th deadliest war of all time is the Second Congo War. The Second Congo War, the largest war in modern African history. It directly involved 8 African nations, as well as about 25 armed groups from 1998 to 2003. After the Rwandan genocide, people were concerned with the increasing presence of Hutu factions. Riots broke out, to which was the beginning of the first and deadlier Second Congo War. More than 5 million people were killed during this time, and an estimated 1,000 people have died daily from 2004 to today from starvation and disease.
Number 5.
The 5th deadliest war of all time is the Russian Civil War. The conflict was between the Bolshevik Red Army and the loosely allied anti-Bolshevik forces, known as the White Army. After the overthrow of the Provisional Government, the All-Russian Congress of Soviets met and handed over power to Vladimir Lenin. Groups collectively known as the White Army fought mainly against the Bolsheviks, but Lenin also rallied the Red Army, growing his militia to almost 1 million troops. At the end of the Civil War, 800,000 were killed, not including the 8 million who later died of starvation or disease.
Number 4.
The 4th deadliest war of all time is World War I. The immediate cause of the global war was the June 28, 1914 assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The retaliation by Austria-Hungary against the Kingdom of Serbia activated a series of alliances that set off a chain reaction of war declarations. Within a month, much of Europe was in a state of open warfare. It was fought between the Entente powers, initially consisted of France, the United Kingdom, Russia, and the Central Powers consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. The result after the war was a complete change in major powers in Europe. After it was over, a total of 10 million troops were killed.
Number 3.
The third deadliest war of all time is the Taiping Rebellion. It was a revolt against the authority and forces of the Qing government in China. It was conducted from 1850 to 1864 by an army and civil administration led by Christian convert Hong Xiaoqing. The largest fight was in March 1853, where between 700,000 and 800,000 Taiping soldiers directed by Commander-in-Chief Yang Xiaoqing took Nanjing, killing 30,000 imperial soldiers and slaughtering thousands of civilians. From 1850 to 1864 a total of 20 million civilians and soldiers were killed.
Number 2.
The second deadliest war of all time is the Anshi Rebellion. It took place during the Tang Dynasty in China from 755 to 763 and would reign as one of the most deadly wars, accounting for more than 36 million total deaths. At the time, the world population was only around 225 million, so the Anshi Rebellion took the lives of 1 out of every 7 of people living on Earth. It all started when appointed Xuanzong Emperor and Lu Shan gained power. He planned a revolt to overthrow the weakened Tang Empire, and did so by first gaining respect of some lower-ranked officials who would help him. He eventually got some control, but after his death the revolt weakened and failed. After it all ended, the once powerful Tang had no power, and their presence as a great empire ended.
Number 1.
The deadliest war of all time is World War II. The war began due to rise in power in Italy, Russia, Japan, and Germany. There were dictatorships and mistrust, and invading foreign countries worried and angered other superpowers. Alliances were formed and chaos broke out from the late 30s to 1945. After it was over, the war witnessed more than 60 million casualties, 40 million coming from civilian deaths. The Holocaust resulted in 12 million deaths, the largest genocide during this time. What could be surprising to most people is that 7.5 million people were killed by the Japanese in China. Compare that to the 1.5 million killed from Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. World War II will always be known as a turning point in the history of the world.